This program may contain scenes that some may find disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Okay, cut the music. Let's just skip the fancy musical introductions so we can get to the good part and talk about some ghost stories. That's what people are here for, so let's give it to them. By the way, welcome to Our Family's True Tales of the Supernatural. This is part 2 of a 2-part mid-season cliffhanger. This episode will include 5 tales in one big episode. I talked a bit about the paranormal activity in the house where I live in the last episode. I had seen an apparition of a man with blood streaming down his face, and my mom had seen a figure in a dark robe. It turned out that the guy I saw looked exactly like the guy that had lived in this house previously and had died in a motorcycle accident. Seeing these things scared us so much that I had to say a few prayers about the situation, but it stopped after that. I told my family about the things we had seen at our big Thanksgiving holiday get-together meal in November of 2021. I was a bit proud that my prayers worked and that we didn't have any problems for the next few years after that. I had seen a bit of paranormal activity in a house I was renovating at the time, but it was only at that other house. I'll give those details about that later in another episode. I was hoping that nothing would follow me home from that other house and start paranormal activity in our home. A short time after the Thanksgiving holiday in 2021, my mom noticed a few things happening around the house. She told me that she thought she saw and heard a few strange things in the house. She wasn't quite sure if it was paranormal activity or if it had been due to some sleeping pills she was taking. I told my mom to call her doctor and talk about those pills and see if she can switch to some other pills. She talked to her doctor and they switched her to some other pills. Yet I was keeping an eye out for any potential problem that might occur in our house. My mom still saw and heard some things around the house for a week or two, but it decreased over time. Things seemed to calm down and she didn't seem to see or hear any strange things around the house after that. Since my mom was getting a bit stressed about the situation, she and my dad wanted to take a vacation. They planned to travel a few hours away to another area to relax for a while. My parents took their vacation on the 3rd of May in 2022, and I stayed home so I could work and relax at night. I was still working on renovating another house, and there was still paranormal activity in that house every week. I was still hoping that nothing would follow me home and cause any problems in our house where we lived. My parents left for vacation, and I worked a full day of work the next day, and that first night was very peaceful. I watched television that night using a device that we plugged into our television so we could watch a lot more shows. The only sound I heard that first night, other than the television, was the ice maker in our fridge. The ice maker made the distinct sound of hard ice cubes dropping into the plastic tray in the freezer section of the refrigerator. That first night was very relaxing. The next night was quite the opposite, though. The next night, as I sat down to watch television, there seemed to be a few different types of unexplained sounds. Those sounds kept occurring throughout the night. The sounds seemed to start almost the exact moment I sat down in the easy chair to watch the television. The first thing I noticed was the sound of car doors opening and closing. I went to look out a few different windows in our house to see if anyone drove into our driveway to visit us. I didn't see anyone, so I looked around at the neighbors' houses to see if anyone was going to or from their houses. I didn't see anyone that seemed to be arriving or driving away from their houses. This happened several times, and I kept getting up to see what was making the noise, but I never saw anyone. A short time later, I started hearing noises inside of our house. I started to hear the sound of footsteps shuffling along the floor in our kitchen and dining room. It sounded similar to senior citizens wearing slippers and sliding their feet across the floor as they walked around. I got up to see if anyone was walking around in our house, but I didn't see anyone. I kept hearing the sound over and over. I kept getting up to see if anyone was there, but I never could find anybody. I then started to hear the sound of interior doors in our house opening and closing. It sounded like someone was walking around in the house and going in and out of a few different rooms. I got up to see if friends or relatives were visiting or if anyone had broken into the house. I looked around and couldn't find anybody. The sounds kept occurring, so I got up a few times to check on the sounds of doors and opening and closing. I would look around, but I didn't see anyone there. At this point, the situation was starting to give me a creepy feeling. I couldn't tell if someone was breaking into the house to rob me or if the paranormal activity was ramping up. I sat down to watch TV again, yet I started to hear whispers and voices. I couldn't tell if the voices came from inside the house or if it was the neighbors outside the house. I got up and looked around inside the house and didn't find anything. I looked out a few different windows on different sides of the house, yet I didn't see any of the neighbors in their yards either. So I went to sit back down and watch TV again, and within a minute, I heard the voices again. I sat there and tried to listen to the voices. I couldn't tell what the voices were saying, but it sounded like a man and a woman talking. I turned my head to look around, but was getting tired of walking around in the house, so I stayed in my seat. It then seemed like the sounds alternated back and forth between the different types of sounds. The noises continued and started to occur a bit more often. It started to occur about every 30 to 60 seconds. I got tired of getting up to look around, so I decided I wouldn't get up anymore unless something big happened. I would need to hear something a bit more clear and decisive, or something that needed my attention. A short time later, I heard the distinct sound of someone opening the main entry door on the side of the house. I then heard the distinct sound of someone calling my name from inside of the house. It seemed like a man's voice, and it seemed to speak with a southern accent, as if they were from the southern part of the United States. It sounded like someone walked in, spoke in a loud voice, and said, "Hi, Larry." Larry isn't my real name, but that's the name I'll use here to demonstrate the situation and to give my family anonymity. I got up from my comfy chair in front of the television and said, "Hi, I'm back here in the addition watching TV." I thought the voice sounded a lot like one of my cousins who is from the southern part of the United States. I got up from my comfy chair and walked toward the main side entry door and saw no one there. I then noticed that the door was closed and locked from the inside. I started to look around the room and couldn't find anyone. I looked out several windows on different sides of the house, but I still didn't see anyone. I looked around inside the house and didn't see anyone there either. There wasn't anyone inside our house, in our yard, or in the neighbors' yards. I couldn't tell where the voice came from or what was going on. I know that I heard a distinct sound of a door opening and the distinct sound of someone calling my name quite loud. I was quite sure that the voice came from within our house. Even if it had been someone outside our house, I should have been able to see someone walking around in our yard. I started to get a very eerie feeling, and I was very slow to make my way back to my comfy chair. I wondered if some of the noises could be people sneaking into the house to rob me. I wanted to make sure no one was going to break into our house. I wanted to make sure no one was going to rob me or hurt me. Since I own a few solid metal replica swords, I got one of them and kept it by my side that night. I kept it by my side as I sat in a comfy chair and watched television. I wanted to be able to defend myself in case anyone broke in and tried to attack me. I hoped I could stop any robbers with that sword. I could at least smack someone upside the head or break an arm or some ribs with the sword. It helped me feel like I could stand up for myself and give anyone a good run for their money if they tried to rob me. The various noises started up again and kept recurring throughout the night about every 30 to 60 seconds. I kept getting up to look around, yet I never could find anything within reason that could have caused the sounds. A while later, I got tired and wanted to go to bed. I looked around some more to make sure no one was in the house. I then went to brush my teeth before going to bed, and I could still hear noises inside the house. I looked around a bit more and still couldn't find any sources for the noises. I finished brushing my teeth and heard more noises, and I looked around again, but still didn't find anything. I walked back toward my bedroom and heard more noises. I thought of looking around, but I realized I had just looked around and didn't find anything. I decided to go to bed despite the recurring noises. I tried to ignore the noises and went to bed. I went into my bedroom, closed the door, locked it, and went to bed. I heard a few more noises, but I decided not to look around the house again. The next morning I woke up and didn't hear any unexplained noises, so I got up to get ready for work. I worked another full day at work, but I didn't hear much of anything that night. The only thing I heard the rest of the week was the ice maker in the fridge. One time it was a bit loud and it scared me so much that I almost got whiplash turning my head to see what made the noise. I realized it was only the ice maker, so I went back to watching TV. As my parents returned from their trip, my mom told me something very interesting. She told me that she still saw and heard a few things, but it was becoming less frequent since she wasn't taking the same pills. She said that she suspected it might have been due to the sleeping pills she was taking. She told me that she stopped taking those pills and most of the activity had ceased, but not all of it. I then told her that she wasn't alone and that I had started to hear a lot of strange noises when they were gone. At this point, I started to do sage smudgings inside our house to keep away anything that was negative. Most of the activity stopped for a few months after I did that. A few months later, in August of 2022, I saw another strange thing in our house. I finished my work for the day and went home. As I got home, I went to watch television in my bedroom. As I watched television in my bedroom, I noticed something come out of the ceiling near the entry door. It was the part of the ceiling near the wall between the entry door and the closet door. I noticed what looked like a ball of silvery sparkles come down out of the ceiling. It almost looked like it was in the shape of a person's head. As it came all the way down through the ceiling, I turned to look at it. I then noticed that it seemed to turn to look at me. I didn't know if it was a ghost or maybe what some people would call an angel. I couldn't tell what it was. I tried to be nice and wave hello to it. I even said hello. As I waved and said hello, it paused a couple of seconds. Then it seemed to go back up into the ceiling and it went away. I then wondered if it might be the return of one of the other ghostly figures I had seen previously. I didn't know if it was one I saw in our house in 2016 or the one my mom saw in 2017. I couldn't tell because it only looked like a ball of small illuminated sparkles that was in the shape of a person's head. For that matter, it could have been somebody totally different than the one me and my mom saw. I got up and looked out of my bedroom window to see if there was anything outside of the windows that could have caused the light to reflect into my room like that. Yet my window blinds were closed and there was nothing outside of my windows in the yard. There were no cars that had passed our house either. I couldn't tell what it was that I saw. I was only hoping that it wouldn't lead to a long-term haunting with any disturbing events occurring. 2 weeks later, on the 13th of September in 2022, I had another incident when I went to bed for a good night's sleep. I got into bed and went to turn off the lamp that was on a nightstand next to my bed. My bedroom couldn't get 100% dark because there were some lights from my computer and the Wi-Fi router, so it couldn't be in complete darkness. Yet, as I turned off my lamp, I looked in the corner, and in an instant, I could see a figure standing in the corner. The figure was standing near the hinges of the door. I had a jacket hanging on the back of the door, and a guitar case leaned against the wall a short distance away from the corner. I could see those on both sides of the figure. I could see what seemed like a skinny person in a black hooded robe standing in the corner between them. There should have only been two things, the jacket and the guitar case. Yet there were three things. The third thing looked like a very skinny Grim Reaper. It wasn't there a moment before this when the light was on. Seeing the shadowy figure standing in the corner startled me, and I was quick to reach to turn the lamp back on. As the lamp came back on, the shadowy figure seemed to disappear in an instant. I was trembling by this time because I was stunned by the incident. I sat there in a fearful panic as I looked in the corner and then moved my eyes left and right to look around the room. I didn't see anyone there anymore, and I hadn't heard anyone run away or dive onto the floor to hide. I thought my eyes might have been playing tricks on me or caused me to see funny shapes when I turned off the lamp. Maybe as my eyes were adjusting to the dim lighting, my eyes had played tricks on me. That's what I thought anyway. I then reached over to turn the lamp off once again, and as I did, the figure reappeared the instant it got dark. I immediately turned the lamp on again, only to have the figure disappear again. I thought about this situation for a moment and wondered if it was one of the ghosts we had seen in the house in the past. I thought it might have been the pale man I saw who had the blood running down his face. I also wondered if it was the person in the dark robe my mom had seen. I comforted myself with the thought that at least the shadowy figure stood still and didn't attack me. I also wondered if it might have been one of those types of spirits that lingers in a familiar place, but is generally harmless. At least it seemed that way for the most part. I made a slow move with my arm to turn the lamp off once again. And as it got dark, I could see the figure again. It was still standing in the corner. I noticed that it looked very skinny and didn't seem menacing in any way. It was only standing still. I tried turning the light on again, and the figure seemed to disappear in the light. I turned the light off as I looked in the corner, and as the light went off, the figure reappeared in an instant. I then turned the lamp on and off again a few times as fast as I could, and still look at the corner of the room. Once again, every time the light came on, the figure disappeared. Then, as the light went off, it reappeared. It did the same thing over and over again. I left the light on, got out of bed, and walked over to the corner. I waved my hand back and forth in the corner and felt nothing there. I could touch the jacket on the back of the door, the guitar case leaned up against the wall, and I could touch the wall. Yet it seemed like there was nothing there other than those things. I then walked back to my bed once again. I turned the lamp off again, and in an instant, the figure reappeared again. I tried to talk to the figure and ask if it was the same person I had seen at my door in the past. I asked if it was the person I saw with blood on their face. I even asked if they had lived here before. I didn't notice any response to my questions. I then told the figure that I was sleepy and needed to go to sleep. I also told the figure that it wasn't allowed to hurt me or harm me while I was sleeping. I then rolled over to go to sleep and hoped that it would remain harmless. It seemed like it wouldn't do anything destructive or cause me to wake up in the middle of the night. I opened my eyes again and looked toward the corner and saw that it was still standing there. I then closed my eyes again and tried to go to sleep. I hoped it would be like a guard as it stood there and tried to keep me safe. I hoped it might be a person who would try to keep intruders away or wake me up in case of a fire. I wondered if the person in the black robe only wanted to think about their life or how other people live their lives. I was too tired to think about it anymore, so I closed my eyes and tried to go to sleep. Even though I felt uneasy, I drifted off to sleep after a while. As I woke up the next morning, I didn't see the dark figure in the early morning light. I looked back and forth through my room and didn't see anything out of the ordinary. So I got up and got myself ready to go to work for the day. A few weeks later, on Friday, September 30th, 2022, Hurricane Ian hit in our area. The power had gone out in our house, and my family sat around talking for a while. We hoped the power would come back on, but we knew the storm was bad and might be out all night long. We sat and talked by candlelight until it was bedtime. We blew out the candles for safety reasons, and then we went to bed for the night. I went to my bedroom to go to bed, yet I needed to use the toilet. As I opened my bedroom door, the end of the hallway was on my left, and the rest of the hallway was to my right. I could have reached my hand out to my left and touched the wall at the end of the hall. The bathroom was only 2 or 3 paces to the right through the hallway. I would then need to take a left to go into the bathroom. The entire hallway was only about 22 feet long, or about 7 meters. As I stepped out into the hallway, it seemed to be almost pitch black, and the air was a little thick with humidity, because it was still warm at that time of the year. I realized I would need to pull my cell phone out of my pocket so I could see to use the toilet. At that moment, I noticed what seemed to be a pale man wearing white clothing at the far end of the hallway. He seemed to have a dim glow to him, so I could only barely see him. Yet I could tell he was there. I had difficulty seeing the figure with any clarity since it was so dark, though. Yet I could tell that the figure seemed to stand still at the far end of the hallway. I was a bit startled seeing this figure standing there, and I couldn't tell if it was an intruder. I stood still because I didn't know if I needed to fight off an intruder or if it was a ghost. I was a bit startled seeing this figure standing there, and I couldn't tell if it was an intruder. I stood still because I didn't know if I needed to fight an intruder or if it was a ghost. As I stood in the dark next to the bathroom doorway, I pulled out my cell phone to shine the light from it. I wanted to shine the light so I could be sure whether someone was there or not. As I shined the dim light from my flip phone down the hallway, the figure seemed to have disappeared. There seemed to be a slight transparent mist in the place where I thought I had seen the person standing. I looked through the mist to the door on the other side of the room beyond the end of the hallway. I moved my phone from left to right to shine the light all around. I wanted to make sure if someone was there or if they had stepped around the corner in the room at the end of the hallway. I didn't think that a person could have jumped around the corner to avoid the light. Besides, there were tables and chairs cluttered in that part of the room, so it would have been impossible to jump over there to hide. If they had jumped over there, it would have made a loud crashing sound as they collided with the tables and chairs. Since I saw no one there, I thought I had been mistaken, so I put my arm down by my side and was about to carry my phone into the bathroom. As I put my arm down by my side, the cell phone light went out, and I could see the pale figure with the white clothes once again. The figure was standing in the same place down the hallway, about 2 or 3 yards away, or 2 or 3 meters away. It startled me once again, and I pulled out my phone once again. As the light shined again, I noticed that the figure had disappeared again. all I could see was a faint white mist that seemed to be the same size as the pale figure in white. The mist was in the same location where the figure had been standing. As I slowly relaxed and leaned my arm down once again, in that moment, I felt a disturbing feeling in my stomach, and I didn't want to look down the hallway anymore. I couldn't bring myself to look down there again. The more I thought about it, the more disturbing feelings I had. I made a quick dash into the bathroom to use the toilet and tried to be quick so I could get back to my bedroom. As I exited, I noticed out of the corner of my eye that the pale man was still down the hallway to my left. He was still in the same place. I refused to get a good look over there again. I tried to move fast back to my bedroom. As I got into my bedroom, I closed my door and locked it. I was quick to get right into bed. I tried to curl up to go to sleep as fast as I could. I thought about the pale figure I saw at the far end of the hallway, but I tried to forget it so I could go to sleep. I had seen other things in the house, and nothing had attacked me or harmed me. I wondered if the pale figure I saw could have been the same one I had seen a few years before with blood on its face. I couldn't tell from what I had seen because I couldn't see it very well in the dark. I only saw a tall, slim figure that was very pale and seemed to wear all white clothes. The clothes seemed to be white pants and a white dress shirt or a white suit jacket. I couldn't get a good look at the figure's face or any distinguishable facial features since it was such a dark, rainy night. Especially since every time I tried shining a light on it, I only saw it turn into a white mist. I had recently wished that I could see the figure that I had seen before to be sure he was okay. I started to guess that maybe this might be the same ghost. I prayed about the other ghost and I thought it had gone to heaven, but I wasn't sure. I never saw it move from the place where the hallway opened up into our dining room. I don't know why it only stood like it did. I wondered if he knew I wanted to see the guy that had blood on his face. This guy only seemed to continue standing there. The next day was Saturday, October 1st, 2022. I thought about these things that I had seen, and as I got time, I wrote out the details. I wanted to be sure I could give an accurate account of what I had seen. About 9:25 that morning, the power came back on, and I typed the details out on my computer and saved it. A few months later, on Tuesday, the 6th of December in 2022, I sat down for an evening meal and saw a strange sight. As I sat down at the dinner table, I thought I saw something out of the corner of my eye. So I turned to look into the kitchen. As I looked into the kitchen, I saw a shadow figure. It stood in the far corner of the kitchen that was next to the laundry room doorway and the door that led out of the back of the kitchen. As I sat in my chair, staring at the shadow figure, it seemed to get startled by me looking at it. It looked like it flinched, crouched down, and moved away. As it seemed to turn while in a crouching position, it also seemed to fade from my sight. I'm not sure if it didn't want me to see it or if it didn't want to interact with me. I couldn't tell if it went down through the floor, into the side of the cabinet, or through the back door out of the kitchen. It seemed to disappear in that corner between the cabinet and the door, but I couldn't tell for sure. My mom was sitting next to me at the head of the table, and I was about to ask if she saw the shadow figure. Yet as I opened my mouth, I stopped myself from saying anything. I remembered that she told me that she didn't want to talk about these things because it gave her the creeps. She also didn't want other people to hear us talking about it for fear that we would be shunned by family and friends. So I stopped myself from saying anything or telling my parents to look at the shadow figure. I didn't want to scare my mom, so I didn't mention it at the time. I only made a note of it, and after our meal was finished, I typed it out on my computer to keep a record of the account. I was starting to realize that the paranormal activity was ramping up in our house once again. There had been a few different events that I witnessed that year. This brings us near the end of the year, but the paranormal activity continued. If you want to know more of the details on the continuing paranormal activity in my home, let me know in the comments section. I plan to put these details in season 2 of the show, so comment and let me know that you want to see a second season. I had seen some paranormal activity in a house we were renovating, but I hoped nothing would follow me home. Yet I was starting to wonder if something had followed me home or if something was stirring up the activity in our house. I'll give more of the details about the things that occurred in the house I was renovating in the next episode. There was plenty of things that I witnessed at that house as well. At this time, I'd like to say thanks for sticking around to watch the whole show all the way to the end. I wanted you to get to see all the good ghost stories from the start, because that's what you're here for. Yet now, I'd like to ask you to help me out. If you like this program, please click the like button. If you want to make sure you don't miss an episode of the show, click subscribe or follow if you're on Rumble. I'd also say that there are a few surprises planned for the next few episodes and a few for the next few seasons. I also plan to share some of the solutions I found to resolve some of my paranormal problems. I also plan to share some resources that can be helpful for dealing with paranormal issues. So leave a comment if you want to see these details in the next season or future seasons of the show. As for now, I'll just say that I hope to see you in the next episode. Bye for now.